Sparky Coach Podcast, Crowie here with my mate Cameron.
What's up?
What's up? Highlight of the weekend for you was what?
Highlight of the weekend was probably we had a good time down at the beach on Sunday. We had nippers in the morning. Sun came out. It's been awful weather every Sunday for the last few, so the kids got around that. We had a cool little birthday party on Saturday with a heap of friends.
We had a birthday party yesterday too. Bit of a piñata.
Yeah, we had two piñatas at this indoor play centre. It was pretty. I felt pretty exclusive. If I'm not going to lie, it was just pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of piñatas actually. Now that
Piñatas a lot.
piñatas. So they need an adult piñata but with lollies in them. Imagine the aggression just wrestling for lollies. Actually,
There would be a lot of built up, I reckon, suppressed anger amongst a few adults.
yeah, shirt optional. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Boys and girls. I remember, so on the weekend, so Jasper's was one of the smallest kids at the party, so he's 5, and piñata broke open, and he's genuinely unsure sort of where to stand when the pit. So Phoenix is pretty switched on. He's 7. He'll be like, he knows, he can see what's going to happen. It's going to break early. I'll get out of the line for hitting it and engineer it. So strategic planning, genius, right? Like comes up with this stuff on his own. The things you do for lollies. So anyway, Jasper got caught frantically looking for lollies, didn't get any, and just burst into tears. And it was pretty sad actually.
Is
so
that
this is what life gives you, mate. This is what life gives you.
is that like a metaphor for life if you're not first to laugh? Sort of thing?
No, we gave some of the older kids that gave him some lollies, so that's good. But anyway, talking about getting left with no lollies, we're talking about January. This is probably part 3 of December, Jan. Checklist, playbook, whatever you want to call it, and starting January with nothing or starting January disorganized are awful. Like it's absolutely awful. So it's on twofold. If you've got no work in January, you're going to have a really hard time drumming up work in January 5th to January 10th when everyone's on holidays. There's no lead generation happening there. Everyone is at the beach, depending on where you live. So that's hard to do. Also, when you guys come back to a half-pack schedule, there's nothing like a half-pack schedule to leave you broke. You've got to hit your certain targets of billable hours every week, and if you're not getting them, you might as well not be operating. And yeah, you can miss a week or two if there's dire straits, but you can't start January like that. So January can either make or break your year. And I want to talk today about starting the new year well and how that starts now. So Cam, you mentioned this on the back end of the last podcast about moving all non-urgent jobs to January. And I know you were super keen to elaborate on it, and I was like, cut down, don't share too much, put it on the next one. Talk to us about that. How do you handle that from now?
So obviously there's non-urgent work, so there's work that it can wait. Look, I think as you build your business up over a period of time, you can naturally have work sitting every January for you. And what I mean by that is there's elements of scheduled maintenance works. First thing that pops into mind straight away around scheduled maintenance works is compliance side of things. So RCD testing, test and tag, emergency light test, any type of it could be that you do an annual service of the aircon, or you do an annual service of the solar system, or it could be a lighting inspection as well.
Resi, electrical checks, There
can be lots of annual health checks that need to be done, which are really easy to put into January. That over time you build them up. So what I mean by is looking at what you can push in the non-urgent work. So the compliance, if someone comes along, it's hey, I need this compliance done sort of thing. If you can just be hey, yeah, sweet, we can get it done in the first week of January for you. You now have an annual client and an annual job to do that work. So finding and identifying those jobs that come up towards the end of the year, if you can just pick them up and put them into January, your future self will thank you for this as well, because you're naturally building a pipeline of work. And what you'll generally find too with this compliance style work that you're doing is that naturally the while you're here jobs will appear as well. So you're actually have the ability to pick up other works which then allows you to fill more hours in the day, more hours in the week, more hours in the month by the while you're here work. And the while you're here work, you have the ability generally and capacity to do it pretty instantaneous, because you have the other jobs that you're probably hoping that, I'm hoping that you have scheduled in the type of work that has a bit of flexibility. So it's like, yeah, no problems at all. Look, we'll just finish off the compliance tomorrow and then we'll just jump straight onto that, and that'll take us a day to get sorted, and then we just jump on to the next client for the next work, and just communicating with them. So it's about identifying the works that you have that they're not critical to being done. So obviously think about it in the sense that, hey, like there's a new build happening and the handover is the week before Christmas. You can't just go to the client and be like, oh yeah, no worries at all, we're just going to fit off in January because that actually suits us better than you. And it's like, no, like PC is on the 20th. Like you don't have a choice. The owners get the keys on the 20th afternoon. So like that's a job that you can't move. That is in concrete, set in stone. But there's the other jobs that you can move. And it's about just having that communication and having that flexibility with people, but identifying what they are and moving them in. And what I really like about if you're doing some type of annual work or some type of quarterly, 6 monthly, whatever it is, regular style of work, is that now you're feeding the next year and the year after that. So as you develop and grow and get more clientele, that January window is filling up with the repeat work that you have for your clients, which is super important from your business point of view, to be like, hey, we're coming back into a stress-free type of environment with a workload.
Yeah, so just like what we used to do. So I think the longer you've been in business, the more you're likely to have better clients. And those better clients are usually in the, no, not always, but a lot of times in that commercial space, like clean work, they provide you repeat work, and they provide you lots of work. That's sort of what you're looking for in a repeat client. You see too many people get stuck in that mode of just finding the betties. They give you one job for $200 or $4,000 or whatever. Great. And but you want someone continually giving you these $4,000 jobs or $5,000 jobs or $200 jobs or $10,000 jobs. So I mean, for us, like all our commercial maintenance, we used to stack into January. It was so good because we'd done a lot of work there throughout the year. So the staff were familiar with the sites. They've been inducted into the sites. They've been indoctrinated into like where the manholes are, and at 7:46 p.m. this light comes on through that timer, fed by that back subboard that you don't know about, that's behind that closed door that you've never seen before, but you've seen it because you've been here for like just the stuff that happens at the commercial site, and if the staff are familiar with them, and you're back on the 3rd or the 5th. And then they're just doing 4 to 5 days of routine maintenance stuff. And if you can back end sort of some exit and emergency light testing with some test and tagging, it's mundane jobs, but hey, someone's got to do it. And you can make some really good money in those jobs, especially when you bundle them up into certain packages, or, while you're here doing this, you can also do this. So we used to hit the ground running in January, and there was no dramas of starting the year and starting the year well and starting the year billable. And also, as a business owner, you want to have a bit of holidays, right? Like you want to be back on the 10th, 15th, 20th, or whatever you want to be back on. And if the guys and girls can get back earlier, and if they're back earlier on $200 jobs that you're needed for, I left the junction box at that manhole, turn left at the 3rd tree from the old man. It's like very confusing. A lot of higher level like labor involved to get that sort of happening. But if they're coming back into sort of longer jobs that they know about, that they've done before, it's very, very low administration for the business owner or operations manager. So the high level staff can get a break. It's absolutely huge. So first and foremost, you're looking at that. You're also looking at moving all non-urgent jobs to January in terms of just what comes up. So let's take an example of Betty calls. Betty wants a ducted air conditioner. You quote her, she accepts. She's probably not going to wait till January. She's hot, right? She's cooking a spaghetti bolognese, just mince and pasta. That's it. There's no veggies in there. She's hot. She wants some aircon on right now. But you reference, say, a rough-in that you've got. they're probably not going to gyprock January 10. They're probably going to gyprock it. So ask the question, hey, when are you gyprocking? And they might say like, oh, gyprockers are working over the break because they're going to turn up in a bus and there's 46 of them, right? They might say that. In that case, okay, I've got to get out of it. So just communicate, work out what you can push back. Non-urgent jobs like a rough-in, sometimes a fit-off can be not urgent, especially a first fit-off when they're not going to move in. So like the clients are not going to move in, and if we screw that switch on now or in a month's time, it's really kind of irrelevant. You're also looking at things like rewires. That was huge for me. If I got a rewire in November, I was like, all right, this is going to January, because it's a 5-day job, a 7-day job. It involves power down, so the client can actually go away at that point. There's no dramas, move all the furniture off the wall. Like, you're not disrupting anyone while you're in and around their house. So you're always
there's less time pressures too on that as well.
Yeah, I think, how do you go about doing this? Obviously, if you need the work for the next month, you're going to take the work. Like, you take the bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. You're not going to stack January up and leave a bare November, December. That would be very silly. But if you are quite busy, and if you're not quite busy, go back, and we did a few podcasts on things to do to find work, and go back and ask yourself why you're not busy. And chances are, like, could you have David hustled off a little bit more or whatever? But you're always looking to, like, if you are busy, can something push over that's not urgent, that's not going to affect anyone? And I think, how do you know it's not going to affect anyone? You make the call to the client, hey, I've got a pretty busy 6 to 8 weeks coming up. Is there a chance we can push it to this point? And, is it at all possible? I always like to ask a question, because you'll be able to hear them be like, oh, no, definitely not. Or, oh, yeah, that sounds okay. So you asked, you've got permission now you can do it. And I think that's what you don't want to just tell your client that's going to January, that's going to February, whatever. If you can call and ask and then hear what they say, I think that's a really clean level of communication. So yeah, thoughts, Cam?
Yeah, no, I'm massive on the communication side of things. I think a really interesting one is around the rough-in side of things. If you're working in that new build space, a really easy conversation to have with the client around that is it's like, hey, we're just going to rough in the new year, because why do we really want to have all the cables and that just hanging around in an open building over Christmas when there's no one there for 3 weeks? It can leave the chance to theft and all those sorts of bits and pieces and damage and vandalism and all that. So, I've already had that conversation with 2 clients already, because they were like, oh, look, we're probably going to be ready around here. I'm like, look, I don't need it. Like, just from your point of view, there's no pressure from me coming on it. If you just want to get roof on and some cladding done, if it is a cladded property, we're happy to wait till the new year to get it done for peace of mind for you. And both of them were like, that'd be so much better, because then if the roof gets on a week early, no pressure on us, we'll just start cladding. If the roof gets on, bang on deadline, sweet, no worries at all, we'll just come back in the new year and you can rough in. And the other thing too is, because ultimately it's an easy conversation to have with the builder, because they're essentially liable for the property at whatever stage it's at also too. So if something does happen to it, it's going to be that conversation of, well, like, we sort of told you this scenario. So I found in my time, most people have been super receptive around that, particularly leading into Christmas, to be like, hey, I'm not pressuring you. And if anything, actually, you'll probably get a better outcome in the new year. It's almost like an education piece with your client, I know we're good. I'm assuming Tim, the plumber, who we do all the work with, I'm assuming he'd be stoked with that as well. And like, surely you can just book everyone. And they're like, yeah, that's just so much easier for everyone. It's almost like you're leading them down the path a little bit. But having that, just the conversation, I can't stress the conversation enough, and communicating with them all now. So like, what are all the jobs you have on your books at the moment? What are they scheduled for? What are you waiting for? What information do you need? Let's just communicate with them and see when they need to be booked in, when their expectation is. And you'll start to find that you build it out really quite quickly. Like, oh, hey, we've got that little fit off to do. That little project's coming up where we've got to change all those lighting, light fittings in that basement. Yep, that's cool, that's happening. And find out where it all starts to build into it all. And then you start to have an idea and make educated decisions, rather than being like, we've got no work, what's going to happen? And you start to panic. Whereas like, if you actually plan it out, then you can be like, we actually don't have work for 4 weeks of the end of the year. We need to find out and hustle to get that happening. What do we have in January? There's nothing in there at the moment. Also, okay, sweet, we really need to hustle. Or it could be like, we've got 12 weeks of work and there's only 8 weeks left in the year. What can be shifted into January? And it's interesting, I had a conversation with one of my mates today. He contacted me, another Sparky. He was like, hey mate, just letting you know, I went through what we've got on for the rest of the year. We've had 2 of our jobs shifted to the beginning of this year. So we've got some availability if you need any subbies. Or if anything comes up that you're not interested in doing, happy for you to flick it my way. So like as a community, you'll have your own little network of people that you know that you can reach out to and touch base with also. And, you know, it's the 28th of October that we're recording this now. He's told me that already now. So I know in my mind, if there's anything that pops up that isn't suitable for us or not going to work in with what we have, I can be like, hey, I'll just flick it over to him. And then he'll be thankful for it and grateful for it because he's like already aware that he has a bit of a shortfall and he's putting those feelers out already.
Yeah, and I think coming into busy times, everyone just forgets what they did that was working. So it's like the things that you built your business on is like literally getting back to people, answering the phone, good response time, quality quoting, good communication. And sometimes when you get busy, that just goes out the window because it's like, well, I didn't even eat today, let alone get that thing done. So it's good to reference that just because we're in almost the start of November, you're going to need work in February, March, April. So the seeds you're sowing out now are really important, not for this year. This year you might be like, I'm chocked out, I'm booked out, I'm cooked out, I can't do anything. And that's cool, but don't forget about Feb. You know, you're only as good as what you were doing 3 to 6 months ago. So this is a time of the year where everyone takes their foot off the pedal in touching base with people, in meeting new people, in taking opportunities, in walking past things, or, you know, I won't go to that BNI meeting because I'm just really busy. And you get caught in a short-term spin cycle, forgetting that you're in a long-term marathon. And it's like, we're not in it. If you look at it, timestamp it right now, yeah, you're in the washing machine, round and round and round, and help, it's 40 degrees in here, right? Like, but if you look at it if you pull yourself back and go, oh, it's only really a 6 to 8 week window of being really busy, I've still got to fill that cup in Feb, March, April. And a lot of people burn their good clients at this time, either letting them down by not getting back to them or over quoting something because to time something they're quite busy. So it's like you just want to make sure you're consistently providing a great product, consistently providing value, consistently being consistent across all avenues. So something that someone paid $1,000 for 3 months ago, they're not going to pay $2,000 for now. And I get it. Like, I get the part of getting an Uber during Splendor in the Grass. Well, it's really busy now. I'm paying $200 for an Uber, and I used to pay, you know, 50 for this because lots of people are coming at it. But I just don't lose the forest and the trees or the trees and the forest. I just don't think don't let someone down or don't lose a long-term client for $200. The cost to acquire a client either cost you your physical money by investing into like paying for your time to go and find work, or paying for Google ads, or paying for SEO, or paying for a BNI, or paying for something. So you've invested a lot to get clients and you can lose them really, really easily. And how many times can you let someone down before you lose them? I think the strength of the relationship dictates that, but probably 3 times, you would say. You can send 1 wrong invoice, mistake. The 2nd wrong invoice you send, okay, yes, I'm so sorry, I made another mistake. The 3rd wrong invoice. Okay, we've got a consistent pattern here of something that's not good enough and something that can be deemed as genuinely offensive and something that can cost you a relationship. So it's like, you know, you can probably not turn up to somewhere 2 or 3 times before someone goes somewhere else, and rightfully so. And then you can leave yourself in a boat where you're like, you had everything you needed in your hand, but you dropped the ball, someone else picked it up. Great to reference here, and you're going to hear us talk about this a lot, but like when someone other people drop the ball a lot more than you realize because, you know, you care and you still drop the ball. So how much more do other people drop the ball? If you can position yourself to catch the ball that they drop, that's great. So it's like, don't leave yourself too booked out coming up to Christmas. Try and leave some gaps in your schedule, trying to recognize the organic stuff that's going to come in, and try and be flexible to the point. So that's what we're talking about, like work out what you can throw over to January, what you can't. And then you know, try and leave some gaps and try and just do the urgent work, because the urgent work's always going to be there, because we live in a reactive, well, we're in a reactive industry. And a proactive industry. So, but the chemistry has to always go between proactive, I'm organising and wrangling the schedule into my submission to where I want to be, and also reactive, I've got to get that done before sheeting. I've got to get that done before the roof goes on. I've got to get that done because that's an emergency and it's stopping their production of that. So it's like we're forever juggling the proactive and reactive, and it is a bit of a juggle. And you know, every week changes, every day changes. So yeah, that's my advice. Like, throw over what you can, and then you know, do what other people can't. Yeah,
no, I totally agree with that. One thing I do probably want to finish on here is around like the mindset of I've got so much on for the finishing off the year. I'm really, really busy. I don't have time to think about January. Now, this can be quite dangerous because you may be like unaware that you actually have 12 weeks of work and there's only 8 weeks left in the year. And by sitting down for a couple of hours, running through the workload that you do have, putting those phone calls in, you may then speak with that builder that you're working with, or the project manager, or the body corporate, or the ducted aircon that you had to do. You may end up talking to those clients and they may be like, oh, mate, totally forgot to call you, because they're busy too, right? Everyone's busy, right? They've got to call you like, oh, hey, man, like, it's just not happening like this side of Christmas. We're not getting to that stage anymore because of this and that, you know. Betty with the aircon could be like, oh, hey, we've had an issue come up with the family, so we've had to scoot back into state to help out someone. Or that builder's like, oh, hey man, we can't get the roofing on. The roofer's just not going to be ready. Or we had a delay in the timber, you know, all that. And that project manager might be like, oh, nah, hang on, we don't need you. You know, we're only going to get the petitions up this year. You know, that body corporate might be like, oh, hey, the other person that we were getting in to do the flooring, they can't do it till January now, so we don't need you until February, sort of thing. So what you've done by putting a little bit of time and effort into it and stopping, you've gone from having a 12-week program to fit into 8 weeks that you were completely unaware of, to now being able to remove some of that work, which will flow into January and February organically, right? And there's a chance here that you've actually opened up a few spots for that opportunistic route where people drop the balls. So highly recommend, and probably can't reiterate enough, if you haven't done this yet, put the time and effort in. What realistically you might have 20, 30, 40 jobs maybe somewhere at some kind of stage. You might have the similar amount of quotes sort of thing that you can communicate with people. It's not that much time to put into it. And I can tell you, knowing what's going to be happening as opposed to not knowing what's going to happen is a way better feeling.
100%. So I realised we didn't touch on a major topic here, which will come up in part 4, which is do you have January clients? So we're going to wrap this one up here and continue on next time. So Cam, if you had one opportunity to bless the people into their day, what would you say?
Oh, find what you've got happening and pick up that phone call. Pick up that phone call and communicate with that client, because it can tell you everything you need to know. And being in the know is better than being in the dark.
I feel like that should have rhymed. Like, being in the know is better than being in the go. Like, you know, something like that. We'll take it. We'll take it.
I like it.
Put a light on. See you guys.